All right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Julia Thompson. I am here hosting for the MBK Music Group. Tonight we are kind of talking about mental health in the music industry, and we're here with Brian, who is one of the owners of MBK Music Group, and also we are here with Paul, who is helping us with counseling for our bands. And why don't you guys go ahead and kind of give a little bit more of a background of what you do?
Yeah, so obviously I'm Brian, one of the owners and co-founders of MBK Music Group. And obviously, for those that are following on the MBK page, you know that we are full service artist management, artist development company.
And my name is Paul. I am the owner of Supporting Act Counseling. And so what we do is we offer counseling and life coaching to touring musicians, artists, and creatives.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining me tonight and doing this live. And I have some questions for you guys that I'm excited to get the answer to, and I'm sure all our followers will be excited to hear your guys' answers too as well. Let's see. I wanted to start with, Paul, what got you into doing what you do?
Well, I'll give a little background about me. So I grew up in kind of a musical family, and I've been doing, playing music my whole life. And in my teens and 20s, I played in different bands. And in kind of the mid 2000s pop punk scene, I was in a band called Sullivan Sky, and we had some moderate kind of success in our town. And we played with some bands that were really big at the time for, within our scene, bands like Hello Goodbye, the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, Mayday Parade, Taking Back Sunday, Motion City Soundtrack, these bands that were getting really big. And what that did was it kind of gave me a inside look into the music industry and some of the struggles that musicians have. So when we kind of went our separate ways as a band, I've always been interested in studying counseling. And so I got into I started studying counseling and got my master's in social work, and then did some addiction certifications. And so 2 years, I've been doing that for about 9 or 10 years now. But about 2 years ago, as I've kept up with the music scene over the years, I said, man, I'd really love to combine these two. I love the music industry. I have a heart for the people in it. And then so I said, well, why don't I combine my love of that with my love of counseling? And so I started Supporting Act to make sure that people in bands specifically could get counseling from someone who's been involved in the music scene and has a little bit of an understanding of the unique struggles that musicians go through.
That's really awesome. Let's see. Yeah, that is really like it's such a cool thing to take like two different passions and be able to like form them into one and be able to do something that's so helpful to the music community as a whole. Brian, what do you think is important about bringing a counselor into MBK and just like to artists as a whole?
Yeah, so very good question, and this is something that Attila and Jesse and I, my business partners and I had talked about for a while now, is realizing that with our culture within MBK is that we treat all of our artists like family, right? So we take every aspect of their career and even their personal life to heart. And everybody went through the pandemic, of being locked down for a year, 2020, and it caused we saw a lot of depression, a lot of just causing a lot of problems for a lot of artists. And so it's one of the areas that we wanted to focus on. We wanted to raise more awareness about. So for us, it was really about, we wanted to reach out to somebody and partner with somebody like Paul that, obviously has the expertise and has knowledge, and, again, provide our artists with that kind of resource. So it was more about not only just, creating awareness, but also offering a service and having somebody there that, that our bands could go to and feel like they had somebody to speak to about the problems that they were experiencing.
That's great. It's great that you're offering that service and that resource to your, the artists that you work with, because I think that really helps with them being able to produce better music. So,
this was also a reason that I really wanted to partner with MBK. When I got connected with Brian and we were talking about it, I was really impressed with how seriously they were taking the kind of holistic approach to supporting their artists, and making sure that their mental health needs were taken care of. And so the community at MBK seems to be very close knit. We've talked about, it kind of seems like a family, and I know you all are really supportive of your musicians. So I think you all are setting a really great tone for how management companies can be supporting their artists in the music industry. And so that was a really cool thing to see, and something that got me really excited about working with MBK.
Same here. Do you feel like music artists are more susceptible to mental health and drug abuse?
Yes, the answer clearly is yes. And there's a few reasons why. So research has shown us that 2/3 of people, just in general, in the United States, have complex childhood trauma. And so if we extrapolate that, we can say that, that 2/3 of it was done with this, that research study was done with a select group of people, but we could kind of extrapolate that kind of would go along with the rest of the population. So not only would this apply to all of us in general, but obviously to musicians as well, who may have higher instances of trauma because they're clearly a lot of times using music as a way of coping with that trauma. And so that's a big piece of it. And then another piece is the music industry. There's a lot of access to drugs and alcohol within that scene. And also, it doesn't have to be this way, but the lifestyle is also makes it a little bit easier for artists to be involved in some of that stuff. So not only is there access to it, which you may not, within that scene, but then also, you may be, for example, you play a show late at night at a venue, you drink the whole night while you're at the venue, you kind of sleep on your van or tour bus till the next day, and you got kind of the whole day to kill until maybe the show the next day. There's other things that happen in there, but that lifestyle can make it a little bit easier to get involved in some of those things versus maybe if there was a more structured lifestyle, or which isn't a bad thing about the music industry in and of itself. That can be really a way rewarding for musicians. It's just that it can end up adding to the culture of use and mental health issues.
Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned like that artists use music as a way to cope and heal. Do you think that that's a healthy way for artists to heal? To just channel that into their music?
So I think music is a really great way to help artists heal. It can't be the only way, but creating music can definitely be a coping skill that helps artists kind of process their trauma and work through their mental health issues. And that can be great. But one issue that I see in the work I do with musicians is that sometimes it starts that way, but then the music industry in and of itself can become traumatizing, right? So when this is the case, it's important for artists to work through these issues. Because what's happening is the music industry can potentially cause more trauma for them. And so it's like perpetuating this trauma within an artist. And then the thing that they were using to kind of cope with that trauma and heal from it is now traumatizing in and of itself.
That makes sense.
I think, and to kind of piggyback off that, I think it's one of those things where we kind of take it for granted when we all have idolized different musicians, or, we look at them in a different light. Like, they have a great life. And I don't think a lot of people realize they're human, like everybody else. And they're susceptible to a lot of the things that even we are, like Paul was saying, there's certain pressures when they're, writing an album. They have to record, they have to go on tour, they have their labels are putting pressure on them, management groups putting pressure on them. So there's a lot of that added stress on there that most people don't see. And, all that stuff can, really, snowball into bigger problems. So that's something that, we wanted to make fans more aware of, is the fact that they are under a lot of pressure that people don't see. It's not like this glorious life where you're playing shows and you've got just this wonderful life. It's just a lot of things behind the scenes that that you don't really get to see day to day. So
yeah, that's one of the reasons I feel so passionate about working within the music community, is that musicians are really misunderstood, and kind of like you were saying, Brian, there's maybe this misunderstanding or misconception of what it's like, and I a lot of times artists will tell me, it's like, people think that, oh, I'm famous and I get to tour and travel, and this is just like the best lifestyle ever. And so, but it's also, and there are some things about it that are unique and can be fun, but it's also, I mean, it can be grueling. There's like, yeah, the touring, the traveling, the demand of having to write new music. There's temptation, there's imposter syndrome, there's loneliness, there's depression and anxiety. And so, those things often, people just look at musicians, or especially people who are really kind of famous on a national stage, and think, oh man, they must have the best life ever. And again, there are great things about it, but there's also a lot that makes it really challenging, and can make it really difficult for artists.
Do you think that there's like a stigma as a whole, like around counseling too? Like, do you think that like there's a stigma on like artists have this glorious life, but I think there's also like a stigma on, counseling. And do you think that artists are hesitant to use that as a resource? Like if they have that available to them, do you think that they will actually use it? Or do you think that they'll stay away from it just because people kind of have an idea of how it looks, I guess?
Right. I've had a lot of clients tell me that, or hesitant about counseling, or if people knew they were in counseling because they didn't want to come off as like crazy, or that they didn't have everything together. And so, yes, there's definitely a stigma around counseling in general. And so, but we've seen, I think, in the last few years, especially, that stigma around counseling going down. And so I've worked with a lot of clients who, are being kind of more open about that. And I think people in general are being more open in normalizing counseling. And you even see big names like Lady Gaga and different artists kind of being a little bit more. Hayley Williams from Paramore, I saw a video from her being more open about them being in counseling, about the importance of counseling. And that's what's kind of cool about MVK doing all of this, is they're really normalizing that idea about getting help and mental health, getting support for their artists.
Yeah, and I think just like if other companies can kind of follow in those tracks, then it'll help kind of normalize that, especially like in the music industry. Brian, do you feel like your artists have started to utilize this resource since having it available?
Yeah, I mean, we've made it accessible to them. Everybody's aware of the fact that we offer it as a service. We don't push it on them, but we do a good job of letting them know that, hey, if you need it, it's there. And we'll help facilitate it if need be. And we stay out of it. Like for us, it's their private lives, and we don't want to get too deep into that. But our extent is really making them aware that, hey, we care about you. We have this as a service. If you need it, let us know, and we will, make the connection. And from there, it's between that person and Paul. But I think as like, again, we talk about normalizing it. I think we've been doing a good job of trying to make that the case. And, I think what we're seeing is more artists are going to be more inclined to say, hey, like, I do want to get help, or I need to work through these things. And so it makes it more of a case where they would, take up on that offer. So.
Mm-hmm. How do you guys think that counseling from the right people will impact bands and the music industry as a whole?
Well, people often think that artists have to be in turmoil to write good music, and that's just not the case. And so one thing could, in general, just be better music. More, better and different music from artists. And so we want to kind of push past that other kind of stigma, or other kind of preconceived idea that people have to be in turmoil to create good music. But also, counseling, life coaching, those kind of things, it just helps create a healthier lifestyle. I mean, better boundaries, more life skills, emotion management, better interpersonal skills. If you're in a band, you're with these people all the time. And we see bands break up because people can't get along. And so I actually, I had just watched a video it was about the two guys. They were in the video on YouTube from Florida Georgia Line, talking about going to counseling together because they love each other, but they had some different political views, and they're together all the time. And so better interpersonal skills with each other, kind of general wellness, less substance use, which also means all of these things also means less missed shows, less loss of jobs, loss of revenue. I was talking to a local venue that said there was an artist who had a mental health crisis the day of the show, and they had to cancel it. And it's good that that artist could get that taken care of, but that's a lot of lost revenue for the bands and for the venues and for the people who work there, and so it's a missed opportunity for these people who wanted to go to the show. So I think it's important that they get their mental health taken care of, but through counseling, that's the hope, right? That if you create this foundation, then there's more preparedness when that time comes. And also, and this won't apply to everybody, but a lot of the musicians that I was in the music scene with, we were young, and a lot of people coming up in the music scene, you're talking 17, 18, 19 year olds. And so, there's a lot of opportunity there to build life skills and to build some of these things like emotion management, interpersonal skills that maybe they haven't gotten just because they're young and they got thrown into this, jungle of an environment really early on in life.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. I didn't even think of.
And it is actually a good point. On the MDK side, we deal with obviously artists of all ages, and that is something that you don't really consider when you have such young artists that kind of they get thrust into this, whether it's fame or just the lifestyle. They don't get to develop those those skills, those life skills that we do as we're getting older in adulthood, because they're kind of just thrust into the limelight of being in shows and having trying to put on a persona or this kind of ideology of who they are, and they never really get that point to develop. So I think that's really a good point, is that we have to understand that with these artists, especially the younger artists, that there's their need for them to kind of be able to step back and really kind of develop into themselves. Because we do see things. I mean, I've seen artists that have run into the problems with drugs and alcohol or imposter syndrome or any of that stuff, and those are things that I think given the right resources early on, can be somewhat avoidable. So,
yeah. Do you ever run into problems with when people are done doing music and they're trying to get into more of like a normal routine with like a family and things like that? Do you ever see like issues with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And because, a lot of times those maybe more maladaptive behaviors that were picked up on the road continue on. I mean, and the clearest one is substance use, right? So if you pick up addiction on the road, addiction might be something you deal with for the rest of your life. And so, those things are definitely, going to stick around, and again, can be managed and can be healed from. But they're going to be lingering, and then there is oftentimes, immediately after, there's a lot of, it is an adjustment to get used to kind of a more, maybe, I don't know if normal is the right word, but kind of more normal schedule, or kind of fitting in, to general society is just different. And especially if you've had higher levels of fame, then that's different too. And there are aspects of that too, where, if you're a person who's recognizable and you're going out into the community and, you're getting recognized, there's a whole piece about that too, and what that's like for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are there other resources that people can utilize with mental health in regards to the music world?
Great question. There are a few. I mean, you can. If you look online, you'll find some. I mentioned Lady Gaga earlier. I know she's done some great work. They have a foundation, or she founded the Born This Way Foundation, and they have a lot of resources on their website. Getting connected to a counselor through an organization like Supporting Act Counseling, or even someone local that you can see. One of the reasons I started Supporting Act, it's interesting because telecounseling was not a big thing 10 months ago or 11 months ago. We've been doing it for 2 years, but it wasn't really a thing that people were that interested in. And so one of the things we offered was continued counseling for artists while they're touring. So I would meet with clients while they are on tour, so they don't have to, go on a 3-month tour and not see their counselor that whole time, and then go see them at home when they get home from tour. But and the reason I bring that up is because now there's a lot of push for other services. Like, I think BetterHelp is one. There's a couple online ones. So, whether it's me or another organization, it doesn't matter as long as people are getting the help they need. But there's a lot of those out there. And now with technology and telehealth, it's a lot more accessible.
Yeah,
And
and
with
for
your,
us,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, for us, I mean, we've been, very very adamant about promoting, obviously, supporting ACT counseling with Paul, but also like Backline has resources in SAMHSA, government agency, and of course we're very big on the suicide prevention as well, and so there is the national number for that. So we try to provide all that stuff on our website just so that whether it's artists or anybody for that matter, can go and see those resources and access them if need be. So.
And as far as your company goes, do you offer services outside of like music management companies? Do you like offer services just for individual artists who come to you? How does all that work?
I think that's for Paul, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry, that was right there, Brian. Yeah. So for me, some of the services that we do kind of mental health counseling and that, but but then also, in general, we would say we do like life coaching and stuff like that, where we can, again, some artists are, some people are hesitant to the idea of counseling, and some people might feel like they don't need something as deep as what we would call counseling. But when we look at life coaching and those kind of things, so that's again where we can learn some of those more life skills and interpersonal skills and things like that. And then I partner with other companies, kind of like NVK, and I've worked with a few, and I've been in contact with some labels and things like that, where we are going to partner to try to keep this movement going.
That's really great. So Brian, how did you meet Paul, and how did you decide that he was the right fit for MVK?
Yeah, so that's kind of the great thing about internet and Facebook and things like that. Obviously being during a pandemic when you can't go out, and for those that don't know, Paul is in Michigan. We're here in Florida, so we happened to come across on social media. We connected. We set up a call, and the call was great. I mean, we kind of I basically explained to Paul how MVK operates and kind of our mentality, our artist first, centric minded, kind of philosophy, and really what we were looking for, wanting to raise awareness, but also have a some sort of a resource to our artists. And just in talking to Paul, and it was like instant, when you talk to somebody, sometimes you may get the feeling like, I'm not sure if, if this is going to work out. And it just clicked. And we had, from that point on, we kind of brought our team in and had a call with him, with the broader group, and everybody felt the same way. So, it's one of those things where we're selective on who we work with, whether it's a sponsor or a partner, a band. And it's no different here. Obviously, we want to look out for the best interest of our artists, but I can say, on behalf of the team, that once we got a chance to meet Paul and talk with him, we knew that was somebody that we wanted to work with.
Well, that's great. I just want to applaud you both, because I think it's amazing on both ends. I think it's amazing as somebody who works for MVK. I think it's amazing to be able to say, hey, like, they care enough about the people that are in their company to provide this for them, especially for someone who went through losing somebody to suicide. I think that it's such a great resource for people. And then Paul, I think what you do is really amazing as well, in really focusing on a group of people that people don't normally focus on. I feel like it's kind of a newer thing. I don't know. I haven't ever seen counseling for people in the music industry specifically or focused on that. So I think it's really amazing.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And it's been great partnering with MVK, and to start to see this become, you guys are kind of out, you're cutting edge as far as I'm concerned in making these kind of connections with someone like me, and putting, the mental health of your artists, on the forefront, because like I said, this industry can be very traumatizing. And I feel like you all are doing a great job to not do that to your artists, which is really refreshing to see.
And we appreciate that. That's really, kind of been our philosophy since day one. I mean, when Jesse Attila and I when we launched MVK, we wanted to kind of disrupt the system. And, we didn't want to follow what everybody else, the norm is. We wanted it to, create some headway in the industry. And we got met with some conflict and displeasure at the beginning, but we've quickly seen that a lot of people are starting to adapt and say, oh, we should be doing that. So if anything, if more people get involved in this, that's great. That's what we want. So for us, it's really about kind of creating that forward momentum. And I think it's important to note too that while we're very big on making sure that our artists are taken care of, we have a staff. We have one of the best staffs out there, and they're no different to being susceptible to those things too. So we do give that as a resource. Any of that resources are available to our staff as well. So I don't want to feel like it's just for just the artist, because whether it's Julia or anybody else in our team, it's everybody's a family. So.
That's a great point to mention. When I was talking with one of the venues in town here, they were saying how he was, one of the venue owners was really excited about this idea of partnering to provide on the spot counseling for musicians at the show. Because again, this one artist had a panic attack or mental health crisis and then couldn't do the show. But he said, man, I'd love to get connected with you because my staff could use counseling. Like they put up with a lot of stress and pressure, and making sure that everything runs right at a show. And, you're dealing with, like any job, you're dealing with some great people and you're dealing with some difficult people, and they do that day in and day out. And so, and they're also kind of involved in the music industry, but in a different way. And so not to forget kind of the ancillary people that are involved in the music industry outside of just the artists themselves is important. I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, I think that's all the questions I have for you guys. Is there anything else that you guys specifically wanted to talk about?
Again, I just want to make sure that, for anybody, again, artists that are watching or that will watch this video, or anybody really for that matter, fans, make sure to obviously go to our website. We have a tab on there, MBK Cares, dedicated solely to, this type of things, resources and whatnot. So I want to highlight that. And also, I'll give Paul an opportunity before we sign off here to kind of drop his website and links too. I think it's important that, if anyone is facing any types of issues, it's a great, resource. Reach out to Paul, set up something. It's all anonymous, and utilize it, because, there is help out there. And I think a lot of people, have the tendency to kind of bottle things up and internalize things and say, hey, I don't need to get help, or I don't, again, we kind of talk about, they don't want to be put out there that, oh, I'm getting help because it makes me look crazy, and realize that, there are people out there to help. There is help, and there's a lifeline, take advantage of it. It's there for a reason. We're always going to promote that, whether to our artists, or to any of our fans and staff members. So.
For me, if you want more information about me and kind of what I do and what Supporting Act is about, our website is supportingactcounseling.com. Even if you're just interested in talking about what I do, or you're interested in counseling yourself, feel free to reach out. One thing I try to do too is with the artists that I work with is that I also kind of talk with them about this idea of me being available, not just in that session, but you can kind of reach out throughout the week for like consultation, or if you're struggling with something that comes up in the moment, you can reach out. It's not just this, like I see, Paul at 3:00 on Friday and I don't get to talk to him outside of that the whole week. If you need support, I try to be as available as I can to my musicians and artists and anybody that I work with. And I also want to say thank you to Julia for setting this up and handling all the technology around this. And so we appreciate you as well.
Oh,
yes,
thanks.
thank you, Julia. She's a great host. But yeah, we'll make sure to drop the links for both, Supporting Act Counseling's website and Facebook in the comments after the video, as well as the MVK Cares link as well. So if anybody needs it, reach out. Like I said, or if you're looking for certain resources, you can message our the MVK Facebook page, and somebody can respond back with links to those resources.
Yeah, and I think too, I wanted to add too that, like, it's great for if you need help, like if you need help, you have these resources, but also if you see other people who need these resources, definitely reach out to those people, because a lot of people who are in a sensitive state of mind, they don't necessarily reach out to get the help they need. So share these links to the people that you think need them, because it could save their life.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, very good. To, obviously people may not be, quick to get those resources. And so being able to recognize those opportunities, I look back, there's time, I've had friends and people that I've grown up with that I've seen go through, good and bad stuff, some of it, whether it's substance abuse, depression, suicide, and sometimes you look back and you're like, I should have done this, I should have done that. And so it's really a good opportunity that when you recognize that, don't feel like you're, you have to sit back and say, well, they can take care of it themselves, or I don't want to get involved in that, because you could, like you said, you could be saving somebody's life. So,
or even they might say they don't need help, but just like kind of pushing those links to them, like, hey, I found this, check it out. Maybe they'll end up checking it out.
Yeah, that's true. You never know kind of what'll happen. And a lot of people too, like from the most extreme cases where people are really struggling and having a lot of issues and need support, all the way down to there are people who just like to have a neutral person in their life who's not in their immediate circle to talk to about what is going on. So, if you're thinking, well, again, it comes back to that kind of stigma around being crazy, right? It's not necessarily that you might think, oh, I don't have anxiety or depression or this, I don't need counseling, but maybe you just need an impartial person to externally process some of the things that are going on in your life. And so that's all welcome in counseling. Those are all things that we all need, and some of us get in various ways, but if you're not getting it, counseling is a great opportunity for that.
It's a really good point. All right, guys. Well, I think that's really it for tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you guys jumping on with me and doing this live. I think it means a lot to a lot of people. It means a lot to me. So thank you. And I guess this is good night.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for having us. Thanks, Paul.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.